We all know that the voice acting is good, but how are the other parts of the sound design? Overall, okay, but there are two things that I want to point out. Nora's weapon sound effect has changed from what it originally sounded like from Volume 1. It now sounds like something being fired out of a tube rather than a small cannon. There's also this one swoosh type sound effect that I heard a lot throughout the action scenes.
Son?
The White Fang is evil, I totally called it, and I'm bringing your daughter back!
I just don't like it and found it a bit overused. Not as overused as the whip sound from Johnny Test, thank God. I have to point out a moment that I know is bad sound design. It was during the battle against the Nuckelavee. Early on, Ren gets grabbed and Nora saves him by firing off a single shot. Now listen to this. Did you catch it? I'll loop it. Nora fired off another shot, but there was no visual event or noticeable effect on the Nuckelavee to go with it. Remove the sound and it wouldn't change anything. I also have to give credit to the people who worked on the sounds of the Grimm, especially for the Nuckelavee. Really stellar job there and a very unique sounding creature. With that, I now want to talk about the design for the final boss of the volume, the Nuckelavee. This is a very interesting creature that comes from Norse and Akkadian mythology. The way they designed this creature in the show seems to take elements from a couple of images that I have seen of this creature. Long arms that reach the ground, a powerful looking horse, and a human type of upper body, like an imp, attached to where a human would be riding it. This is one imposing monster. But, even though it is very interesting to look at, in execution, it comes off as very disappointing. They spent over half the volume building this creature up as have been around a long time, and surviving many battles during that time, thus making it very dangerous. Yet, its main attacks are just its stretchy arms, and the horse only does two things: donkey kick Zhang and charge a building. The horse part only stands around and get hurt while the upper half attacks. With this creature, you have two sets of eyes and two individual brains, but both focus on who the imp is attacking. They treated this creature as having one line of focus instead of two. The horse could have been used to great effect for this creature's multitasking capability. Like, have the horse chase around one character and the imp keeps the others at bay, or the imp attacks and the horse runs around to avoid taking too much damage and keep a safe distance from the other characters. The fact that this creature is part horse didn't matter. That part might as well have been 4 very large legs, or just forget that part and just have it be the imp. The RWBY really needs to look at monster design from the Soulsborne games. In those games, just about every aspect of a creature is utilized in combat and even throws in nice additions to spice up encounters. Like how Ludwig's squishy gaping mouth spits out this kind of ectoplasm, and how the cursed tree's fruits are used as small minor explosive firecrackers. It's all about utilizing every aspect of the boss in knowable and unexpected ways, which is done decently with the imp part, but is not done well at all with the horse. There is also the aspect of having multiple stages to a boss, and they have a moment that would have signified a second stage. But, once again, this potential is completely missed. They show the imp giving this immense roar, so much so that its mouth completely separates. What do you think as a gamer that knows video game mechanics and other video game aspects are integrated into this show will think when they see a final boss be focused on to show it roar and notice a bright red glow in its mouth? This is what I immediately thought was going to come into play. Having said and shown that, I do realize that just about every Grimm has a red glow in its mouth. It's just that they show this creature ripping its mouth open with a loud roar, and at the same time its back spikes burst out more, and it ultimately changes nothing about how this creature behaves and what this thing can do. The music in this volume is as stellar as it always has been. This time around it is more emotional than adrenaline filled. My favorite tracks from the soundtrack are Like Morning Follows Night, Bad Luck Charm, Armed and Ready, and the remixes of Sacrifice and I May Fall. When it comes to an opening of a show, it is essentially acting as a trailer for the show. It can either tell its own story while expressing what it is about and its characters, or it could just be a cool showcase about its story, characters, and themes. I would suggest checking out Mother's Basement and his videos breaking down good and bad OPs. He has talked about SAO, Mob Psycho, and more. For the sake of time, I'm going to quickly run through what I like and dislike about the opening up to the minute mark. It starts out really great with a representation of the events at the end of Volume 3 and where our four mains are heading to or where they are. This bird flies past Ranger left to right, then a leg transition. Okay then. Crow is looking over Ranger and the bird comes in from the wrong side, breaking its direction of action. There are some good transitions early on in this opening. God rays, character positioning, and Blake thinking of something that bothers her, causing her to look left, and it fade transitions to Yang. This moment where Yang is being mocked by a version of her past self is great, and this throws her to her lowest point where Adam is fueling Yang's fear and depression is great as well. It only sucks that the alternate Yang thing had no story presence in the actual show, and that Corsac and Fennec jump into the frame, ruining the shot. When I first saw this, I was wondering how these two relate to Yang's story. They don't, and they don't even have much to do with Blake's. It would have been better to just cut them out. I don't even know who's who. Now we get the big villains for the series. Hazel gives this gesture that only says, "He's tough." Cinder sees the camera and turns her head away, like she is saying, "Whatever, say what you want." Tyrion is just smiling with excitement. Watts has my favorite gesture, because he notices the camera and gives us a look that says, "The fuck you looking at?" Salem's is only a mean stare. It's supposed to be intimidating, but doesn't work. The zoom out to Grim roaring is good, but the villains are still in the same poses that we originally saw them in, and then 3 more Grim jump bottom up past the screen for whatever reason. Now to talk about the action. These first 2 sequences are not that good. The first has RWBY facing the wrong direction initially, and the animation seems to be out of sync with the music. I even noticed that Tyrion's expression is completely flat the whole time. This ends with one of the most confusing poses and actions. Tyrion is low to the ground with his foot raised up behind his back, and RWBY shoots the foot? Was Tyrion trying to block the shot, or was RWBY trying to deflect the foot? Neither works as a good description for what is going on. The only reason I can think of for doing this is to hint at Tyrion being a scorpion faunus by having Tyrion's leg be the tail. Possibly foreshadowing RWBY cutting off Tyrion's tail as well, but that had no impact on RWBY as a character, so I doubt it. It cuts to Adam rushing Blake and, "Blake, he's rushing you. Blake! Blake!"
Snake, answer me! Snake! Snake!
I think I've seen her reaction pose before. It was during the charity event scene. This whole thing is supposed to come off as suspenseful and tense, but all I can do is smile in disbelief. Adam is shown being wild and low, but he is introduced and continued to be animated as straight, intimidating, and precise in the show proper. So, to watch him go at Blake wildly and take more than one swing initially is kinda off for the character. But that could be as a representation on how Blake now views him. And then, I can't help but find the face Blake is making here silly. For comparison, I got permission to use from Tumblr Silenticha's redraw of the same pose Blake makes when Adam goes at her a second time. Ignoring a change in art style from 3D to 2D, let's focus on Blake's expression. The redraw has more terror and shock on the expression compared to the original, which is more surprised and worried. The thing is, if we were to go with the redraw, the expression wouldn't fit the tone of the music. So, to make this better, to me, is to make an expression that is in between the two. Something that is more afraid and maybe has a mix of shock and surprise. Leaning more on the surprise, but not much. If we keep this nude pose, there is still the other problem with the sequence of the opening. This is the only time I will reference the song of the OP. This goes against the lyrics of the song in that moment. The lyrics say, "And not be overcome by our sorrow." Looks like she is about to be overcome, doesn't it? Also, after Adam's initial swings and Blake's use of her semblance to get away, there is a fast and almost jarring camera move that flies to the left past Blake. When I watched this the first couple of times, I thought it was a cut to a different camera angle. I realized what it actually was by watching the OP on YouTube with half speed. This is fast and easily outpaces the music. After this, we get a nice shot of Weiss training, and we get a much better and simple action scene that also ends on a good shot. But then we get a shot that is essentially duplicating something that was already done before. We have already established these characters in the OP. Why put them in another shot that says, "Hey, we are in this story"? We finally end with the four mains facing away from the camera looking out into the world as the title fades in. It's a decent end. I just wish there was more to the background than just mountains. A forest would have been nice for variety. This OP started off good, but then fell apart after about a minute. Alrighty, with that I have covered every topic that I wanted to talk about. I've talked about story, animation editing, the new look, and now the miscellaneous stuff being sound design, the Nuckelavee, and music, as well as the opening. That's everything I wanted to talk about. And the thing is that this was supposed to be the last video in the series, but the final video, final thoughts video, wound up being almost 45 minutes long on its own, and that wasn't including the opening part because I hadn't recorded that yet. I was having a hard time trying to figure out how I was going to do it. But now you see how I went about it and how it took up like half of this video. So I had to cut this stuff out and make it its own thing, hence miscellaneous, random topics. So next video is going to be the final thoughts. I had an itch in my eye. I hate that. So yeah, the next video is going to be final thoughts, and then I'm done talking about volume 4. Is there anything else I need to mention? Oh yeah, last questions. So, questions to you to answer in the comments or message me a response on Tumblr is, what did you think about the sound design, the Foley, the voice acting, the effort, so on and so forth? Were you disappointed in how the Nuckelavee turned out after all that build-up? What were some of your favorite tracks to the score of this season? And did you like the opening? What were some of your favorite aspects about it? What subtleties did you like? I got the Weiss plushie now. Now I can get rid of this.